Welcome back to the Let's Talk Business podcast. I'm your host, James Price, and this is episode 24. And this is a special episode. We're in the home of G Brothers Mercedes-Benz on the beautiful northern beaches of Sydney in Mona Vale. And a special opportunity to talk to Mark, Adam and James about the G Brothers journey and their custodianship of a major international brand in Mercedes-Benz. So I'd like to introduce Mark and Adam Gaberna and James van der Scher. Mark and Adam are dealer principals and owners of the business, and James is a sales consultant and a long-time employee of the business. Did I get that right, guys?
Yes.
Exactly.
Very good.
Did I? Did I? How did I go? How did I go with the pronunciation?
Pretty good, actually.
Was it, it's a bit
It's not easy, the last name, but
tell me, how would you pronounce
we would say Gaberna.
Gaberna.
Yes.
And tell me about the heritage of that name.
Our family, it's Croatian background.
Croatian,
Yes.
Yeah.
Our grandparents came out from Croatia, Yugoslavia back then.
Yeah.
My grandfather came out first, worked in the mines in Broken Hill.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that was in the 20s.
Yeah, right.
And then our grandmother, when she was 17, got on a boat. 3 months later, came to Australia on her own.
Yeah.
Met her husband in Adelaide. They'd never met before.
Wow.
At the train station, picked her up, took her up to Broken Hill.
How would that be, eh? How would that be?
It'd be pretty difficult. I'm sure it was. It was difficult times.
Wow.
And my father Vic and Adam's dad John,
Yes.
they were both born here. And once they finished in Broken Hill, like a lot of Slavic families, they come to Sydney in different areas.
Yes.
And they went to Warriewood, and we had glass houses, and we growing tomatoes down there.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So I think everyone's got a good story, and that's a pretty good story as well.
So it's a beautiful story, isn't
Yes,
it?
yeah,
Eh?
yeah.
And Warriewood.
Yep.
No more glass houses in Warriewood.
Not anymore, mainly houses,
Yeah,
yes.
there might be a few glass houses out the back of it.
But that's where the original G Brothers started too, in a shed down there, in a packing shed.
So how long ago was that, Mark?
19...
Early 1960s.
Yes.
Where your dad, Uncle Vic, my uncle, you might want to go into the story about Young's at Coleroy.
Yeah, he started his apprenticeship at a workshop in
Did he?
Coleroy,
Yeah.
working on Volkswagens. And Volkswagens are obviously the new thing in Australia back then, early 60s. And then once he finished his apprenticeship, he became a foreman there, and he said to John, well, why don't we just start a workshop on our farm in Warriewood? And there were some packing sheds there, so they turned that into a Volkswagen workshop. And Volkswagen themselves came around one day and said, do you want to start selling Volkswagens?
Wow.
Yes. So that's when we moved down to Mona Vale, which is just down the street where our current service department is.
Yes. Yeah.
And then 5 years later, in 1969, Mercedes-Benz came and knocked on the door and said, do you want to be a Mercedes-Benz dealer? Because they were fairly new to Australia back then.
Yes. Yeah.
And they said, yeah, okay, we'll do that, like not thinking anything. Yeah. And I guess 55 years later, we're still a Benz dealer.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yes.
Hey?
Yeah.
That is amazing. So, John and Vic.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yep.
And were they good mates?
I think they've always been pretty close.
Yes.
And it was really, from what I saw coming into the business in probably which was their last 10 or 15 years,
Yes.
they had a really cool working relationship. They were, like Mark and I have got now, we've got different skill sets, bring different things to the business.
Yeah.
And I think the key was always a customer-focused orientation, do what's right for the customer, and that's how the business grew.
Yeah.
Similar situation now where Mark and I sort of got our own things to do in the business that we're good at. Vic and John, very similar back in the day.
So how did John get into the game? Right.
Well,
as a young guy.
Yeah, it was certainly on the farm with our late grandparents. While Vic was down at Young's at Coleroy, John was very enthusiastic in working on the farm.
Yeah.
And but he had a gift like Vic for working on cars. And I think once things started to escalate down there, and they got a bit of a reputation for making things happen down on the farm with the vehicles. One thing led to another, and they were both in the car industry. So
And John and Vic, back in those days, in the 60s, there wouldn't have been too many other players in this little neck of the woods, in this community, would there, or was there? I mean, I don't know. Like,
well, it's a bit of a from what I can see back in the 50s and 60s, car dealerships popped up in some really weird places.
Yeah.
And like what I mean by that is there was some, in terms of the volumes of the brands back then, a lot of these car dealerships were based at the service stations.
Yeah.
So for example, there was some Holden dealerships up in Avalon and Newport.
Okay.
Where they were sort of a service centre, a few cars out the front. So this end of the beaches has never been full of all the representations of all the brands.
Yeah.
But it's interesting you asked that because
That's fascinating.
yeah, Brookvale on the Northern Beaches has been a hub for motor dealerships, but because we've been here for so long, people think Mercedes-Benz, they think Motorvale on the beaches.
Well, they think G Brothers, right? Don't they? Hey, like, was it by chance that Mercedes-Benz just knocked on the door, or do you think it was because they saw what you were doing, or your parents were doing with your dads were doing with Volkswagen? Was that the carrot?
I think
do you think
the reputation of John and Vic with the work ethic, and also the I would assume back then that there were some families in the area that not only had Volkswagen product, but had some Mercedes-Benz product in the early day of the Northern Beaches.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think there was a lot of families that had holiday houses on the Northern Beaches then.
Right.
They would be on big properties, rural New South Wales.
Yep.
Come down over Christmas, get to meet Vic and John.
Yep.
And over the years, some of those families, ended up being full-time in Sydney and sometimes in Northern Beaches, and that's how, like, we still get to deal with
some of those families.
Some of those families, we're very friendly with the grandsons or granddaughters, and that generation's now
That's
buying
fascinating,
Mercedes-Benz.
isn't it? Eh?
And those properties, some of which they're still in, and others have moved, but they create a bond.
Yeah, look, I mean, I guess I should disclose, like, I'm a customer of G Brothers, Mercedes-Benz.
Yes.
So I know a bit about you. Like, if I think of G Brothers, Mercedes-Benz, I think of family, I think of community, and I think of brand, right? Those are the three things I think of. But, like, everyone's got their own sort of, perspective on things. But that's what I think of. And, just to take the family bit a bit further, because, sounds like it's thick, the family, right? Like, that's a fascinating story. It's a beautiful story, isn't it?
Thank you.
It's one to be, in awe of, really. I mean, my heart flutters when I hear it, right? Because it's, our forebears did it tough, especially when they were coming from those far-flung places to this horrible place, so to speak. Broken Hill. I know some people at Broken Hill. It's a lovely community, but gee, it would have been tough. And then, to make a go of it here at Warriewood in those days, again, difficult. Yeah, and so, and then talking of families, James. Speaking of families, you've been part of this family for quite some time. When did you join
G Brothers? I joined G Brothers at 2003.
2003.
Yeah.
So just over 20 years.
Yeah.
Not continuous, but
I've had a few holidays.
You've had a few holidays. So we'll talk about holidays. I'm interested. They're very good, aren't they? At letting their staff sort of be flexible. Flexible, you would say. Tell me about your joining. How did you come to join G Brothers originally?
I'd been travelling for 5 or 6 years overseas. Yeah. And I came back to Sydney. Yeah. And basically.
So you were a young guy then, right?
I was much younger.
Oh, you're young now, but you were young.
Look, I didn't really ever have any interest to move into the car industry. I was in the wine at the time, and
drinking it, or
my family, my father was a winemaker, so sort of that was the background there.
So you had a lot of history in the wine industry,
Yes. Yeah. But we relocated up here to Newport, and my grandparents from Avalon, so just in the area as well, and that's how it all sort of eventuated. or started.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. And what was your first role?
My first role, I think I got sent to the motor show.
Sent to the motor shop.
Back to back shifts. Start at 10 in the morning and I'd get home about 10 at night.
Yeah.
Just with boxes of cards and people's phone numbers and things I've been handed out. And I'd come back and basically I'd sit sit upstairs in the mezzanine back in the original showroom and I'd ring customers basically and try and make appointments.
Try and make appointments.
Yeah, and but everybody would meet at the time. Obviously, there was no internet. There was no, everyone could have brochures, and there was that sort of. Well, that was how it was.
Yeah.
And we just trying to bring customers. There was already the existing sales team, so I had to sort of fight for the sales with those guys, and I'd fight finding my own way through finding prospects like that.
Did you have any experience in sales in those days?
I had experience like cellar door and but customer facing roles in different things, but nothing like.
Yeah, but I guess in cellar door you have to strike up a conversation.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. But what made the difference? Because you've hung around in the sales role for quite a while.
I think I was driven and I was quite successful early, and I think that kept me going. So I was.
Why were you driven? Was there something exciting?
I think financially, everyone was like, you can make a lot of money doing this, and at the time, I started to make a lot of money, and I thought this is fantastic. And then you got to know the customers, and you get to know their families and the generations, and that just became a lot of friendships. And I just love what I do.
Yeah,
and I love the brand.
And you love the brand. We'll talk about the brand because I'm interested to dig into the brand. But before we do, the family what's it like working in a family?
I think the family's been a big part of it as well. Always made me feel comfortable. There's been a lot of training. There's been a lot of guidance through the way. It's been a good place to work. So I think that's been. I'm not really a corporate. The rules and the regulations, as Adam and Mark probably know, I've always been a bit hard.
It's a bit
keeping to them, if that makes sense.
A bit tricky to keep him on the straight and narrow, guys.
Sometimes, in terms of.
Find out.
But I think
it gets a bit wayward.
But I think that's been the best.
That's when you send him on a holiday.
What I'm trying to say is, I think the whole journey's been. We've all been on it together. And we've all been successful together, and we've got a fantastic database of customers, and anybody involved in the business is amazing, and all the staff of it as well.
It's interesting though, isn't it? And looking at businesses, as I do in our advisory work and valuation work particularly, keeping a team of people together, a team of people, and developing them is no easy feat. And so how have you guys been able to do it? Because he's not the only one that's been about here for quite some time and developed their careers. From what I know of the crew downstairs, there's some new faces, but there are also some faces there that I've seen for many years here.
Yeah, it hasn't been easy. I mean, James, 20 years. Brendan, our pre-delivery, one of our service advisors, 30.
Yeah, just shout out to Brendan. I was just having a yarn to him.
He's been here since he was 16. He's like family.
It's amazing.
Rex and Dennis have been here, 15 years. So, but, about 5 or 6 years ago, we had a core team that had been here, 15 or 20 years, and we knew it wasn't nothing lasts forever.
Yeah.
And those fantastic staff, they, as James was mentioning, forged friendships and relationships with a lot of our clients.
Yeah.
And that takes time to nurture and continue those relationships.
Yeah.
Of course, Mark and I have been here a really long time, and we can continue with those relationships. But that is a difficult thing to overcome when you've had a staff member that has going into a completely different industry or moving interstate. You can't hold the horses back forever.
No.
And but we've been lucky. We've had some fantastic staff, and been privileged that some great new members have come on board over the last 2 years, 5 years that love the brand first.
Yeah.
Blessed that we're able to represent this product in this location.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a big thing too.
Yeah.
And as James mentioned, there's a lot of training from Mercedes-Benz, and we do quite a bit internally.
So there's a lot of support.
Yeah.
I mean, James, if I asked you to give me one or two words that describe the culture of the business here at G Brothers, what would those words be? For you.
For me,
It's not a trick question.
no,
You
it's
can't
just
get it wrong.
it's just a couple of words, but I think it's just been. Look, I think it's been. The friendships have been pretty good.
Friendships.
Yeah, I think that's been good, and obviously the brand and the product.
Yeah.
And it's not just the brand being Mercedes-Benz. I think the G Brothers brand is pretty
Passion.
Yeah, passion, amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's interesting,
Yeah.
guys. Like if I just from my vantage point outside the business, like there's two brands here, right, that have joined. There's an international, global powerhouse brand, luxury brand, I guess, and then there's the community brand in G Brothers, your family, right? And people, there's many people that say, well, you shouldn't, tie your name to the brand, but you've gone beyond that in a sense. Do you feel, right?
I think Mark might further talk about this, but I think representing the brand, we love everything about Mercedes-Benz and always have, and it's been part of our upbringing. So that's our number one priority. And I think when you do that properly, the G Brothers brand can benefit from that
As well.
Yeah. But we're very grateful that of the Vic and John and the families have put into in the early days particularly.
Yeah.
And we not a day goes by that we're looking at these amazing products and thinking this is really cool to be involved
To
with
be able to
this.
represent these products.
And I think, James, we've never taken the brand for granted because I think we're just part of the journey, right? So
Yes.
whenever we look at it, we go, well, we're part of the journey with Mercedes-Benz, right? And we're just, then someone else is going to take over that journey or someone else is going to take over that journey. So
I love that.
you can't take it for granted. We don't own the brand. We own G Brothers, but we don't own Mercedes-Benz.
No.
And I think lucky, we've got a great relationship with most of the people at Mercedes-Benz, and that's obviously helped. And it's sometimes it's you can't look at it as it's not a one-way streak, it's a two-way streak. So you've always got to think about the other, especially in franchising, you've got to think about the other party and what they're trying to
Achieve.
do. Okay.
Yeah.
And look, sometimes they don't align.
No.
And
no.
But you've got to look at say, well, we've got a great brand and we've had it for 55 years. They could have said any time over the years, I guess, well, we want to do this and that. We don't need you anymore. Okay, so, and that happens in business
It
a lot.
does. It does.
And you can't control that.
No.
All we can do is do the best job we can for the brand and the best job we can do ourselves and enjoy the work. And I think that's pretty much how we look at it.
Fascinating, isn't it? But it's a journey. Like the brand is a journey and the custodianship is a journey,
Yes.
right? So it's not a race necessarily. There's a big difference, right? And there's, impatient guys like me would love to make it a race, right? but that's not what gets the most value, I sense, right? If you guys had it as a race, the risk is you could have trashed it.
Correct. Yeah. We've been here a long time. We still want to be here for a long time.
Yeah.
And we're going to protect G Brothers, our brand, but we're going to protect that brand as well.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to just dig more into the brand, but before I do, the family we talked about, and the succession, right? Because you've come through generations.
Yes.
Over that 50-odd year period.
Yep.
Was that hard?
I think during different stages, it can be a difficult thing.
Yeah.
I think if everybody's on the right wavelength, you can make it work,
Yeah.
which we have.
Yeah.
But again, coming back to Mark talked about enjoying work. The weeks and months and the years fly past.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times we're that busy that we're worrying about the business, not too much the succession. But over time, those things are important.
Yeah.
And you know, the good thing is, like, we've been here a long time, but we've got a lot of energy and a lot of years left in front of us.
Yeah.
So, you know, over the last 5 years, we've had time to, you know, sort through that whilst successfully running the business. And it's not an easy thing, but, you know, definitely something worthwhile.
Yeah. I mean, it shouldn't be easy, right? Because we're all individuals.
Correct. Yeah.
And we've all got our own motivations and desires and stuff. But then there's as you've kind of, you know, without putting words in your mouth, I think you pointed out to me, there's a bigger pie here that we're also custodians of.
Yes.
And I guess, you know, if we all feel like that pie's worth fighting for, then, you know, there's some differences that will sort of go to the background.
Yeah, I think our parents are also grateful. So not only John and Vic, but our two mums, two hands, they're grateful that, you know, there's a continuation as well. And, you know, as I said, Mark and I have got different skill set, and I think they feel like we've got the tools to successfly grow the business and lean on their, you know, early years of success and you know, roll up the sleeves attitude and get on with it in good times and in difficult times too.
Yeah.
So I think they've seen that in us.
Yeah, I love that. So John, Vic, and the two hands are still alive.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And when you get round the dinner table with them, like, do they talk of? Do they reminisce about the shop? About the brand?
We don't have to wait for the dinner table. I mean, my dad was here 2 hours ago. We had a customer down in the coffee area, and Dad was looking like he was staying for 5 minutes, and an hour later I said, look, we've got jobs to do here.
Hey, move on, Dad.
There's some really cool stories, and in fact, you know, early days of working here full time, I'm sure Mark will say the same thing about John, my dad, but, you know, even in school holidays, jumping in the car with Uncle Vic to go and pick up a customer's car, which we do a lot of here.
Yes.
You know, because of our location, we do go and pick up and delivery for service. Hearing Uncle Vic talk about, you know, giving me a bit of a snapshot of who this customer is we're going to pick up, what's important to them, what to get involved in, what not to get involved in. That was really early.
That's amazing, right?
Lessons in, you know, the different ways of dealing with different customers and what some of their requirements are.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, I still think about.
Well, I mean, it's not just a transaction then, is it? Because, you know, you're thinking about, you know, all the bits that go to it that relate specifically to that customer, you know, which in today's world of selling cars and social media, is it still relevant, that, do you think?
I think so. Very well, James is a perfect example. You know, he'll come to me on any given day and say, look, I did, you know, this gentleman's out the front. Do you remember him? And I thought, I'm trying to help me, James. You know, he bought 3 cars off us in the early 2000s, and then he went and bought another brand, and you know, they've moved somewhere and come back into the area, and now they're ready to look at a Mercedes-Benz again. He is a walking teletext of, you know, he's got an incredible memory.
Yes.
But also, you know, the connections are they're important to us, but he's very, very gifted in you know, who's who.
What attributes do you have to have? Just to add, you know, just to take that a little bit further and put the drill on you, James. Like, what attributes do you have to be a good salesperson in this business?
I think a good memory is very good over the long term.
Yeah.
It helps a lot, as Adam was just saying.
Because you can relate to people.
Yeah, but you also remember
what they went through and what you took them through.
Yeah,
or
but it's also, I suppose, the connections early on are going to help with the sale later on as well. So I think that's a very important thing.
But that's having there's a degree of maturity in that, right? Because it's almost like saying, look, you know, the bait might be dangling right there, but don't just jump at it and grab it.
Yep.
You know, think about you know, what might lead up to it. Yeah?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
I think also with James, he's probably talking himself down a bit, but he's very good in keeping contact with people.
Yes.
And he's probably one of the best guys I've seen do it. And that's probably why he's been successful in what he does.
Yes.
You know, from the start, from the motor show.
Yeah.
He sold a lot of cars from that motor show, and that was he'd only been there with us a week or whatever, and he got thrown in the deep end. So just from that motor show, sold a lot of cars. But what I've seen with James is he's always in contact with people. Even if we haven't seen him for 5 years, he might just pick up the phone. How you going?
We'll be in touch.
Yes.
And that's the key too, because I know they're genuine relationships and friendships too, because I know he still speaks to a lot of previous staff members and customers that are not Mercedes-Benz owners right now.
Yes.
And might have moved interstate or might have been driving on the brand, but the relationships are still important.
I think that's interesting, and I want to stay focused on G Brothers, but if I look at successful businesses more broadly, customers are funny things. Some business owners look at them at the point of time in the transaction, and that's it. And it's done and dusted and they're satisfied and moved on and they're paid the bill. But other businesses, they have a network of people that they deal with which is dynamic and always connected in one shape or form. And that there's quite the difference around how that, plays. I mean, there's no doubt, a big network, but one that's active is a very valuable thing.
Yep.
And you never know just when it's going to deliver for you, yeah? Is that how you approach it? Do you think about that, or do you just do it?
I just do it, but I do. There's times when you sit back, you think about it, but it's become first nature. Like I just do it. Yeah. So it's a.
What started it though? Was it just that you were inquisitive, or you liked making a connection, or do you just thought,
I like it.
Is there times when you think, I'm bloody if I'm going to ring that person because, they always...
It's the other way around actually, James. It's when people, because I like talking to people and I like people, but it's when the phone starts ringing over and over again from all the different people coming in at once, that's when it gets tough.
Yes.
And you've got to just constantly talk to people and not necessarily buying the product, but just keeping the conversations up. That's when it gets tiring. But I wouldn't, I'd love more of it.
Yeah.
If that makes sense, especially now.
I think, I mean, when there's a quiet spot, I mean, you really need to rely on your network. Yeah. And the network it's not like, it's a bit like the rain. You can't click the fingers on the farm and, I know I can't click my fingers when it rains, but...
You got to keep on going.
If you talk to old mate up there enough, eventually it does. but it's a bit like the network, right? Yeah. Like a good business owner always has options. When they're down to one option, it's pretty tough. But in a network where you've got that diversity and that dynamic nature of it, I mean, it's like a portfolio of shares.
Yeah.
They've all got their value, haven't they? And, you've got to tend to them, right? But I'm telling you how to suck eggs. You're a master at it. I know from experience.
Personal experience.
I've experienced it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
It's a long way to get here, James.
I got to do a few more kilometres. Speaking of kilometres and brands and Mercedes cars, it's a question to all of you. What's a buyer of Mercedes looking for? When they buy a Mercedes, what are they wanting?
There's a lot of things. We've got such an amazing range of vehicles that from A class all the way up to G Wagon and Maybach.
Yeah.
That the cool thing is we don't know who we're going to talk to today. No. We could have someone that come in and tell us that this is the last car. This is going to do me for 10 or 15 years, and the instructions might be that I'm looking for something comfort first. Seating position, etc. We might see someone that's never had a luxury car and they've always aspired to buy a G Wagon. It's their first ever luxury car.
Isn't that interesting?
You just don't know.
Is a G Wagon a flex, effectively?
Probably.
Could be.
Yeah. And look, and talking about G Wagon, there might be someone that comes in to buy a G Wagon predominantly for the status and the look of the car.
Yes.
For other people, the functions of the car. So asking the right questions at the right times key, because we do have such a big range.
To get to that motivation as to why they're...
And sometimes we've got to start right at the beginning. Somebody's come from another brand.
Yeah.
They walk in and say, look, I don't know, I'm intrigued. Show me what you've got. And we've got to start right at the beginning. How many 2-door or 4-door? Do you want to go for an SUV? You're looking at a convertible.
A lot of options, eh?
A lot of options, but that's a fun process too.
Yeah.
And, you never know what you end up with.
So there's an element of customisation. Sorry, Mark.
But they also want a Benz, so they're going, I just want to buy a Benz.
And when they say that,
Yep.
unpick it for me. What do you think they're thinking? Like when they say Benz and they conjure up that Mercedes-Benz emblem as they're sitting back in bed at night, dreaming about it, what are they thinking?
I think the core
Prestige, obviously, the brand.
Prestige? Yeah.
For sure.
I think the trust in the brand. We still talk about safety a lot.
Yes.
When we first started, the training, whether it was Australia-based training or when we were in Germany, the core brand is the quality and the safety of the vehicle.
Yes.
Things have evolved over the last 20 years, particularly with the AMG brand.
Yes.
High performance.
Yes.
Some people don't ask about the safety in the car and the integrity of the car. They just assume, which is fine.
Yes.
We're still going to show a few things that separate the different models.
Yes.
But I think the history of the brand too. The brand's been through a lot.
Yeah.
The original car make, car inventor, 1886, and basically, Carl Benz all the way back, and a lot of our customers do know the history back to maybe the 50s and the 60s with the Gull Wing, and some of our early models, they might have had a grandparent that had a 300E, or we're starting to see those generations.
I had one of those grandparents.
Yeah,
Grandpa. Yeah,
absolutely. So I think, but to answer your question, no weaknesses. Mercedes-Benz, safety, quality, prestige, in some cases status, but also, assuming that everything I want in that vehicle is going to be there.
Yeah, nice. I like
times,
that. Yeah. James, have you got anything to add to that?
I think luxury. That was the only one I think you missed, but that was in there somewhere.
Yes. Yeah. So it's interesting, isn't it? It's a major global brand, right? And you three gentlemen and the team here at G Brothers are custodians of it in little old Northern Beaches.
That's exactly what we are, yeah.
And I just think that's fascinating, and to be able to have done that for that journey, but still be doing it actively and looking at, where to from here.
Yes.
I mean, that's spine-tingling, guys.
Yes.
Really.
Yeah.
I think it is, for me. Like, I'm a business valuer, right?
Yes.
And those things, those are the things we look at, right? Because, businesses go through ups and downs. I'm sure, you've had the same, right?
Absolutely.
But there's what we test in business valuation is sustainability. Sustainability of the team, sustainability of the brand, sustainability of the earnings, sustainability of the customer base, all those things. So, it's exciting, but I get off of this stuff. Sorry. I wonder, looking forward, what's going on with this car market? Because, there's a lot happening with the sort of electric car situation, the whole climate change emissions situation. Is the combustible engine, out?
No, not at all.
Or do you feel that it's here for a good many years?
I think so.
Yeah. What are you seeing?
Well, what I can see from our point of view is that the customers now got incredible choice. So, this is just another choice for a lot of our club. Personally, I'm seeing the electric Mercedes-Benz, our EQ brand. A lot of those customers picking up EQ here, they tend to have another vehicle in the garage.
Right.
Combustion engine, that's the theme I'm seeing at the moment. Whereas if they're,
interesting.
They might have, I don't know, they might drive to Noosa 3 times a year.
Yeah.
They'll take the petrol engine.
So they won't have issues with range, anxiety, and whatever.
And a lot of the running around they do in Sydney, they do in the EQ. Having said that, over the last 2 years, we've got an amazing product that are doing up to 700 kilometres on an overnight charge. So there's not a lot of situations where you have to rely on a combustion engine now. But it's an interesting who is up for electric and who comes in to look and might drive out. They say, oh, maybe I've got one more combustion engine vehicle and I'll be back.
Yeah.
Other people are ready to dive straight in. That's what I can see in this area for our brand.
So there's a mix.
Right? Yeah, well, I think we're seeing, well, certainly here, but I think even around the world, James, we're seeing manufacturers are sort of struggling with electric vehicles. How many do we build? How many don't we build? And I think we're like in the middle of like a big, just going around in circles right at the moment because manufacturers can't exactly work out where's the market totally going. Is it full electric or is it hybrid?
Yeah.
Or is it just normally aspirated motors? So I think that's where a lot of manufacturers are struggling. As Adam said, yes, a lot of customers here, they got both. And look, technology's getting a lot better. Okay, so I guess the biggest thing, the range is good, but it's the charging times. And that's, I think, you drive to the Gold Coast, maybe you'd have to charge it 3 times or whatever. So you're going to have to spend a bit more time at the fast chargers to sit there instead of just filling it up with the fuel and off you go again.
It impacts your lifestyle,
Correct.
So you've got to have a different view of things.
And people have got to train themselves. And the early adopters have done that quite well because there's a lot of technology, apps and so on. You can look at your range and where I've got to stop and all that tells you where to stop and all that information. So that's good. But not everyone's like that. It takes a while. So certainly when you've got governments around the world pushing electric, it's going to go that way. But what we're seeing is some manufacturers saying, instead of saying by 2030 we're going to be full electric, they're not going to go that way.
Yeah.
I'm just not seeing the take up.
Yeah, so it's not going to be like, a full-on climb like that.
I think we've seen that.
You think there's going to be some ups and downs?
I think we've seen the full-on climb and it's just starting to plateau out a bit.
Interesting.
And look, we're seeing people trade in electric cars after 4 years, so they've had them already for 4 years, So and then they're buying another one. So because the technology's better, and it's just going to keep getting better and better.
And being associated with a brand like Mercedes-Benz over this period, what does that mean? I mean, it's a brand that I imagine invests a lot of money into R&D and looking forward. And, I guess, on your behalf, they're looking at all these trends and figuring out how they approach it, Like it's a big call, I would have thought.
Even from a business point of view, like electric cars, are we going to sell less electric cars than we will combustion in the future?
Yeah.
And you could say, do we need that many dealers? Are we just going to build premium luxury electric cars, or are we still going to build the lower entry vehicles like an full electric A-class and things like that? So they're trying to work that out.
Yeah, it's
I
tricky.
think all brands are trying to work that out. And I don't think anyone's really found the right formula. Yes, you could say Tesla's done pretty well. That's because they came in the market very, very early.
Well, and they've got a sort of I don't know whether unique's right, but it's a very, it's a very defined business model, isn't it? And they've been able to kind of cherry pick a section of the market with that business model, but they perhaps didn't have the legacies that all the other brands had.
Yes, 100%. And what we're seeing now is in the Chinese market, there's something like, I think it was around 120 or 150 electric car brands in China, just electric car brands.
Wow.
And you can build an electric car, or you can build a really good electric car, which we've got. But a lot of these, they're not that hard to build for a lot of these people now. Just need an electric motor and a big battery, and just build a car around it.
Away you go.
That's unbelievable. There's that many brands and manufacturers in China building electric cars. So ours are premium, ours are the best.
Yeah.
Yes, you drive an electric car and got to get used to the quietness sometimes, but we can turn a dial up and have an exhaust sound coming through the car, or give it some sporty there's a lot of technology in the car now, like with some of our cars. So it's like, to me, it's like a big mobile phone with plenty of different apps you can play with. There's plenty of things you can do, and I think that's with electric cars. That's where they're going. You know,
Yeah.
just that technology and what we can do for the driver in the car and the experience of driving that car, because you're not hearing the big V8 at the back anymore.
It's very different.
Correct.
It's a bit like electric motorcycles. Like I'm a dirt bike rider, right? And you know, I love the noise of
Yes.
the muffler.
Yeah.
And I don't know what had happened to an electric bike. It's like, oh, that's boring. Isn't it? But you know, I'm probably a redneck, so
Yes, that's all right. Well, I think a lot of Australians still like the V8s. They like the sound of the vehicles, and that's how we've been
That's
brought
how
up.
it is.
That's how we've
Yeah.
been brought up.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah, James, as a salesperson,
Yes.
thinking about these changes, but yeah, where's your focus? Is it on the product specs of what you're selling, or is it on the customer themselves? If you had to pick one or the other, how do you approach a sale in that environment?
Well, you got to, and this now, like I suppose it's the customer, especially going into the electric options. The customer knows more than we do when they walk in. So if we don't know our product, I think that's where we get very unstuck.
Yes.
So we need to know the product.
Yeah.
But again, and it's bringing conquest, I suppose, a different, customer person to the brand, and so that we've got to focus on that as well. So it's a real fine balance, I suppose. We've got to get it right on both.
Yeah, I get frustrated when I walk into, and I've never walked in here and felt this way, but if I walk into a business and the person I'm dealing with doesn't know their product, or I know it better than them, I get frustrated for the business, right? Because I know what I know, but I think to myself, oh, gee, if you're really focusing on that's 101 sort of thing, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
The product, we have to know the product. It's just a necessity, yeah. So, exactly like you said, if there are guys here that again are stronger on different things, which is important, and we're all trained, I suppose. If we don't know something, let's pass it on, or let's move on.
There's
to
a
the
team.
next. There's a team.
Yeah. If I poke around the Northern Beaches community, gentlemen, and ask about G Brothers, what will people tell me, do you think? Eh?
Well, James, hopefully it's nice. But I can only go off even people wanting to join the company.
Oh, really?
And they just say, oh, we've heard good things about G Brothers. And we get that quite a bit from all different people from different industries.
Yeah.
Being in the same street for almost 60 years.
Yeah.
What Mark mentioned about staff wanting to work here.
Yeah.
I think you don't get that if the staff over a 60-year period of work, there's a lot of families, and the great thing is we've got people now that have come back and bought cars that worked here 20 years ago.
It's amazing, isn't it?
That are now in a position, come back and buy a Mercedes Benz for themselves or their partners.
Yeah.
And that's a really fantastic
That's
thing.
powerful though, isn't it? Like, I think to have, the younger generation of job hunters, are very discerning around who they work for and what they do. And so the question about, well, what are these people like? What's this firm like? I think versus, back in my day, well, you just ran to get a job and that was it, so to speak. But, and I'm not belittling the approach today. I think it's good. There's a lot of thinking goes on. But they're discerning and they like to ask that question. And I think that's, you sort of provide a little bit of a jewel about how you position yourself. Because, really, whether there's plentiful opportunities to get staff into your team or whether there's not, you want to be known as an employer of choice, someone that people want to work for, I think. I mean, that's a pretty good starter,
Yeah, well,
isn't it?
it's a good barometer. And I think when you get people saying that to you, and look, We have to work at it. It's not like you just sit here and go,
No.
oh, we've got the sign out, we've got the Benz star out there, and let's just sit there and everyone will just come in. It
They'll
doesn't
roll
work.
in.
We
Doesn't-
talk about
doesn't
that a
work.
lot.
Yeah.
That star out the front is not a God-given right to sell anything or great staff. It is, you know, it does take years of, you know, doing the right thing and knowing, like James said, knowing your product, and also having some great customer-facing staff that have been here a long time, like Joey down in our service department.
Yeah, no, Joey.
Yeah, Joey. Like he's our.
He'd go out of your way to. He'd go out of his way to help you. Right?
Yeah, we leave him alone on the weekends because he's under a lot of pressure because he's that good. We ask a lot of him too because of the incredible knowledge.
Yes.
Started the business as a first year apprentice. Worked his way through the business, and a extremely likeable person. But being here for that length of time now, he's forged the relationships like James has up here in the showroom.
Yeah.
They go looking for Joey, and you know, he's a busy guy. But I think having people like that in the business, having people like James in the business, that helps with our community
It must do. Right.
talk as well.
Yeah.
So it's not all, you know, John and Vic back in the day, a lot of pressure on them for time during the business day because the size of the business back then, they pretty much did it all.
Yeah.
They built the buildings, they sold the cars, they serviced the cars, everybody asked for them. Whereas now the business is the size where we can have great managers, and you know, we're here to help. We're very hands-on, as you know.
Yes.
But we have, you know, great managers in place to run the great teams that take the pressure off us a little bit.
The delegation thing, you know, you're hands-on, and that's one of the, I dare say, one of the values in the business, right? But also, you're able to sort of, you know, give your managers and key people enough lead to hang themselves, so to speak. Like, how do you do that? How do you balance that? It must be hard, is it? Because, you know, it requires
we like empowering the managers. We don't want customers to have to wait.
No.
We want managers to make decisions. And I always, you know, I spend a lot of my time up in the showrooms.
Yeah.
And, you know, Mark spreads his wings across the whole business. But we want people to make decisions based on their training and their experience.
Yeah.
And if they don't make the right one, we can talk about it later and do a retraining, and then but what we don't want is customers to have to wait.
Yeah.
Because that's one of our key advantages. You can deem us to be a small business, small to medium-sized business, in terms of, you know, our key strength is being able to give the customer experience. We can move quickly.
Yes.
We can make
Yes.
decisions,
Yeah.
and I think our customers do appreciate that. You know, whatever they need, there's someone here.
It'll be sorted.
Yeah, and because of our layout on Bassett Street here, we are in separate buildings. We've got our pre-owned next door, pre-delivery. Our auto body opens up soon. Then obviously the big one, service centre on the next corner.
Yeah.
Communication's key. It always has been, always will be, and that's why we have to empower and not only the managers, but the
people, the teams,
all the staff,
Yeah.
all the staff. You know, let's make a decision. You know, common sense decision. Don't wait for us. If you want us, we're here. But we can talk about it after how we can improve.
Yeah, I like that. How many people do you employ roughly?
I think it's 62. Yeah.
Yes, about that.
Yeah, you're proud of the fact that, like, it dawned on me the other day when I happened to be in here for something. I think it was a new car. And,
Another one.
And the trouble is Rex's department down there, you know, he has a lot to do with me, his finance team. Now, I forget his name, but he's a lad working in the finance team, I think.
Jared.
Jared's
been here 15, 17 years as well.
Well, he has, and I didn't know that, right? And he told me his background, and I can't recount it, but I think it started as an apprentice and right through the workshop and what have you. And there he is sitting in finance, hopefully giving Rex a bit of a touch-up. But I thought to myself, you'd have to be proud of a business if you created it to the point where a young dude like that can develop their career to that extent. Like, that's amazing. Like, talk about impact on the community, right? I think, you know, sometimes I think we all take it for granted a bit, right? Like, you know, it's great, longevity, blah, 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 but like that's 17 years of his life in all sorts of aspects. He's learnt, you know, just as you have, James, over the time, even though you've been on holidays a bit.
Yeah.
I don't know, like, going on a bit, but...
Well, I think, James, you talk about Jared, but we've had a lot of staff members who've been with us a long time and then they've left for greener pastures. And some of them have done very, very well. They're running, they're running their own dealerships, and I think if we've helped them along the way, that's good.
And we've learned a lot from them too. They've brought something different to G Brothers, and you know, they've made our existing staff better. And when they go, they leave it in a great place.
Yeah.
And we're still in touch with a lot of those great people.
Yeah, look, I think interesting, like I'd like to draw a bit of an insight out of that. And that is, for me, you know, talking about sustainability of a business is how do you empower your team around you to wear your same brand and vision, but do it in a way that is owned by them and is genuine by them, but within the confines of what you're trying to achieve, you know. And I think that's it. It's a unique ability, and you know, not a lot of businesses by number, particularly in the small to middle size, in my estimation, can do that really well, right? And I see it here, and I think it's been interesting today to, you know, kind of hear some of those attributes. Anyways, just a reflection.
Well, I think, James, that it's all about people, and our business is all about people. It doesn't matter. Yes, we've got to have the nice showrooms and all that, but if I've got the right people, they can sell cars out of a shed, right? If they're really good. And that's how I look at it too. So yes, we've got the great facilities and all that, but it's about the people.
Yeah.
And I think we're at a size where, and Adam's the same, I can go down the service department, which I do pretty much every day, and just say hello, how are you going to all the staff members. I think just building that relationship, it's a very simple thing to do.
Yes.
And you learn a lot about people.
Yeah, yeah.
And you don't know what's going on at home with them.
Yeah.
And if you can help them or whatever, and if they can look for you for help, then you're happy to do that. And I think that's just a simple way of
connecting.
Yes.
Yeah.
And having a good having a good team of people that all get on well and all want to do well. Because I think every business gets that up and down sometimes.
Yeah.
And sometimes it can be one person that causes that problem.
Yeah.
If you want to say that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And having that person can ruin a culture within a business quite easy. And I think if you've got a good bunch of people, a good team, and everyone knows where they're going and what they want to do, and they have a good time as well, like they're here every day.
Yeah, they want to be here.
And it's not easy sometimes. Yeah. It's not easy, it's hard. So it's important for us to make sure that they're as happy as they can be. And as I said, that could be just as simple as having a chat and saying, here you go.
Yeah, I like that. You know, being custodians of the Mercedes-Benz brand, has it made you more discerning around how you manage your culture and your people, do you think?
I think what I've learned with the staff over the years is, Mark touched on it. Some people need a hug occasionally. Some people need a bit of a pump up.
Yeah.
And you know what? Maybe in the early days, we like to do things. You know, get the whole team, get teams together, and you know, a little bit one-dimensional to say, okay, this is where we're at. This is where we've got to go, and let's go and do this. We still do a little bit of that, but over time, learning that not everybody is motivated the same way.
Yes. And
Mark's very good at the individual relationships with the staff in terms of we do care. Yeah. And it's not all about work.
Yes.
And not everyone is fortunate enough to have a loving family at home that
supports
them. Yeah. And for some of the staff, we're the support crew.
Yeah, no, I get that.
Yeah.
And it's important, right? Yeah. It's going beyond.
Well, James, I think you're right. And look, I can speak for staff, and at the end of the day, for me, it's about what's best for the individual. It's not what's best for G Brothers. So I have told individuals you can see that at the point of time in their life where they are. Do you want to not move or make a change for yourself, for your family? What's the best for your family?
What's best for you?
Not best for G Brothers, not best for Mark or Adam, but what's best for them.
Yeah.
And I've got no fear in saying that to people. You know?
Yeah.
Because I think that's important that people understand that. You know? Because you can get caught in day to day, oh, I'm just going to work today, I'm doing the same thing every day. And it happens to us sometimes.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
But you've got to step back.
You've got to step back and look at it and reassess where you're at.
Yeah.
And I think that's important to have those relationships. You can only do it if you've got a good relationship with people within your organisation.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are friends. You know, that's the good thing about this brand. We've got a lot of friends from this brand.
Yeah.
We've met a lot of great people. A lot of great people.
We're quite often, you know, the three of us, we've got fantastic friendships with a lot of people, local and some not local.
Yeah.
And, you know, you get talking, then occasionally someone will pop in, no, I'm actually here to buy something today. Oh, really? Okay, well,
Leave me alone.
Well, come on in.
I want to do some business.
Yeah, come on in. But a lot of it, I love the fact that people feel free to just come in here to see us.
Yeah.
But, you know, service department's extremely busy, but very efficient. But in the showroom, it's a very relaxing vibe, and everyone's always welcome. And you know,
I think that's like we were talking about community before, right? And you've taken us through in an interesting way. You're very connected, right? When you reflect, right?
Yes.
And you know, again, it's a key ingredient, you know, for a business today. Like, there's plenty of people that say in business, "Oh yeah, we're close to the community," but it's an intangible thing, right? You can't write it down necessarily, but it's a connection where, as you say, people come in because they want to come in, right? Whether they're staff or customers, you know, or people that you deal with in other ways. Speaking about, you know, giving people a cuddle. Most times when I come, I give James a hug. I feel like he needs it. Yes. But James, like, you like surfboard riding, right?
Not that since I've had a couple of more young children, I haven't been able to do a lot of it.
Yeah,
I do.
But you do it a little bit, don't you?
Yes.
Like, and when you're out on those waves and you're reflecting, right, as you do, because, you know, there's a fin over there and you're thinking, how long will I be here? But when you're out reflecting and you think about the last 20 odd years of your career in, you know, substantially at G Brothers.
Yes.
Can you identify one thing you would have done differently that you've learnt that as a result, if you had your time over again, you might do it differently?
Like within the industry or within
I'm talking about you.
I don't think I would have done anything differently.
Wouldn't you?
No, I don't regret anything I've done.
Right, you don't regret it. But what's your biggest learning if you think about all those years?
My biggest learning.
Do you think? I'll ask you another question if you don't answer it.
Well, I've had a lot of lessons, to be honest. Like,
Have you?
I've had a colourful life. So it's been, you know, with children and family. So I wouldn't change any of it.
Was it tricky, right? Because, you know, you're a very passionate dude, right?
Yes.
So, like, to do this well, have you had to be passionate right the way through?
I was a very young father. I had my older son.
Yes.
I was a lot younger before everybody else had children around me. So I think that drove me a lot harder to make that work, and that having good people around me and a great job, I thought, and obviously the brand again, helped me a lot. Just kept me very focused. So it kept
you very focused and matured you very quickly.
Yeah, I think so.
Do you feel?
Yeah.
Yeah. So in another world where you weren't a young father, you might have wasted time and not been as focused.
Possibly, yeah.
Possibly. We'll never know.
Exactly. So I think I wouldn't change anything, to be honest.
No. Did you ever think, like, when did you really click and think, oh gee, I'm going to make a career out of selling cars and dealing with customers? When did that sort of dawn on you? I know, you know, like, did it creep up Like, was there a period where you were here in the early days and you were, not sure about where you were going, or?
I think the path was pretty mapped when I started here, because it was very Mercedes-Benz it's very structured, and
It is.
Maybe also when the first few years of Guild.
and I won a lot of. Well, I was lucky enough to win a lot of awards early on and do some travelling with Mercedes-Benz. That opened my eyes a lot. So trips to Germany and other countries, and that was fantastic as well. So so I think that it probably dawned on me then that this is a career, not just a job. Yeah. So
and the rest is history.
Yeah.
James. Eh?
I met you, and
How long ago was that? We don't know.
I think it was in the.
It's a
It
long
was where
while.
you were driving MLs.
Yeah.
You had your, I think, 270
Yeah.
ML 270s back then.
Yeah, I think I told you we used to. So I used to work in where was it? Pitt Street in the middle of the city, right? So I had a team in there. So I was at one of the big four banks at the time. So I'd pick up the team at 5 o'clock in the morning, right, in the ML.
Yeah.
And grubby little people they were, so they were all in the back and everywhere. And we'd head out to Bondi Beach, right? And then we'd get out there, and the sun would be about rising, and we'd go for a swim up and down the beach in the surf. And then a bit of a run to flex our pecs and whatever. and then we'd have brekkie. And then we'd get back in the ML and it had sand everywhere. And we'd be back in the office by 9 o'clock.
Well, that's what you bought it for.
That's what we do, James, every day.
Of course.
What are we doing now? Let's go down the beach.
Exactly.
But those were the days when banking was more than just a job.
Yeah.
It's probably changed a bit.
It's different now, I think so.
I don't know whether we should cut that from the podcast. Gentlemen, what's been the toughest time for you in your carriage of the business, do you think, and how have you managed that?
I think that I would have to say the first year of COVID, the uncertainty of COVID. Having lucky enough, our service centre was open, deemed to be an essential services. In fact, we kept a lot of the Mercedes-Benz Sprinter vehicles on the road for Coles and the ambulance service and that sort of thing. So service was always open, but seeing closed showrooms.
Yes.
And the important thing for us was to keep our staff calm. I mean, we forget about some of these things now, but those early few months for retail, they were pretty challenging times.
Yeah.
But the important thing for us was the continuity of the staff, and everything will be okay.
You had to have a longer term view, didn't you?
Longer
you had
term.
to sort of act straight away, but sort of have that longer term view as well.
Longer term view, and so that was a challenging time. And I think in retail, in luxury cars, the challenge is, last week was fantastic. This week you don't know, and so that sometimes that can be a
bit wearing,
frustrating. But as Mark alluded to, this is a long game, and just when you think it's a bit quiet, somebody that James might have met 15 years ago at a motor show wanders in and says, "Remember me? As a matter of fact, I do," and you're away again. So, the first few months for running retail in COVID was a difficult one for me.
It was difficult.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Oh, for sure. For sure. It was a great unknown for everyone.
Yeah.
But also look at James, we've been doing it a long time, and it's trying to keep that motivation going as well in business, because yes, you enjoy it every day. And yes, sometimes you might take it for granted.
Yeah.
What you've got and what you're doing. So I think you just got to be aware of those things and challenge yourself sometimes. I think that's pretty important. And you've got to keep the mind ticking over. And yes, you have your good days and your bad days, and sometimes it can be really tough. Some things you have to do. You have to do as a business owner. You may not want to do, but that's what you do.
So it can be a lonely place, but you've almost got to be your own mentor and sort of say, well, listen, get some perspective.
Well, sometimes it's good with Adam here, because sometimes sometimes I could just sit there and go, "Oh, this is going to be tough," and Adam go, "Don't worry about it, Mark. It'll be fine," and vice versa. Just having
I'm pretending at the time, but everything will be fine.
Exactly.
Just having that reassurance.
I love that.
It helps. It helps a lot, because I think that's where we're lucky. We're two different people. We've got the same idea where we want to go and what we want to do, But having something I can bounce off Adam.
It's pretty special.
Share the load.
Yeah.
And share the good times too, the fun parts of the
Yeah,
race.
I like it.
Yeah.
Last question, guys. Look, and you'll all have to answer it. But you're seeing a young guy or girl in their early 20s or even their late teens, and they're interested in the car industry. What sort of advice would you give them? What would you tell them, James? What would you tell them?
Well, I've got a young son.
I'm there.
I might tell my son to finish his university degree or his apprenticeship first before.
He's a bit wayward like you.
That's a problem.
No, what would you tell him, James? What would you tell him?
Look,
What advice would you give him?
it'd be more, make sure you're 100% certain. Find a brand that you like as well. Like that's got to
Find
be
a brand that you like.
That's got to be very important. Yeah,
Yeah.
something that you
Passion is a
love.
brand.
Passion. Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't just go in to do it looking for something or an expectation. Because there's probably not everybody's successful
No.
in the industry. That's the thing, and a lot of salesmen aren't. So a lot of people can't do it. We've seen a lot fail over the years.
Yeah.
And that'd be where I'd be and stick to uni.
Stick to uni.
or go and do an apprenticeship.
And enter through the service department.
yeah, possibly.
Hey? Yeah.
No,
Give
yeah.
Joey a run for his money.
This is the right brand to do it in. Yeah,
Yeah.
put it that way.
Adam, what
Yeah,
advice would you give that person?
Advice I would be, James hit it on the head, was find a brand that you think you're going to have some passion for.
Yeah.
Because for some people that might be a high volume brand.
Yeah.
So they might want the high turnover, high volume brand, and that's okay.
Yes.
But for someone that wants to be involved in the Mercedes-Benz brand, if you've got passion for that, that will see you through the tougher times.
Yes.
But also, stick with that one brand because things evolve pretty quickly.
Yeah.
People evolve and go on to do better things. So you might be the next person up.
Yeah,
Age is not a barrier. You can be doing some incredible things at an early age, and also the resilience to, if you find a great dealership, or you find a great part of the industry, to stay there and stick it out and with some resilience.
Yes.
Because opportunities do present, but
It's long term, isn't it?
yeah, the relationships are key. The greatest thing about the motor industry is the relationship with the customers and the relationships with the staff and the manufacturer.
Yes.
So that's the things that they're the things that
Are important.
that I would deem important. Yeah.
Correct.
You agree?
And I think a big thing is trust.
Trust.
Yes.
Trust what?
Well, when our customers trust us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And I think that's important because, yes, we might, let's say tomorrow we have a different brand. I'm sure we'd still get customers come in and buy off G Brothers because we're G Brothers. And I think that's important. As I said, we don't take that brand for granted.
No.
We love that brand and we want to have it for a long time with us on our journey. But I think trust is important with your staff and with your customers.
Yeah, well, it is. Like we've talked about staff and empowering them, right? And to empower staff, you have to have trust. If you don't have trust, there's no way you will empower your staff. And you talked about that specifically, and now you said, well, the other thing is make sure your customers can trust you.
Correct.
And I like that because it's all pervasive beyond the car brand that you're supporting.
Correct.
Isn't it?
And we talk about new people. You've got a well-established brand with Mercedes-Benz, and they're going to keep doing good stuff in the future. Okay, and I think that's why it's important that if you want to work in the industry, as Adam said, go with a good brand because they're well-established. They're just going to keep getting better, better and better. Technology, that's changing. Yes, we're seeing the biggest, you can say, evolution in the motor industry at this moment.
Huge.
It's the biggest we've ever seen. So I think at this point you really want to be associated with a great brand. And as I said, we're very lucky to have Mercedes-Benz.
Yeah, guys, I'm very lucky to have been invited here by you, Mark and Adam and James, into your home here at G Brothers Mercedes-Benz. I really appreciate the opportunity to have a chit-chat today and to hear some of the insights about G Brothers Mercedes-Benz, about the family and the extended family, about the community and the engagement and connection that you have, and about the brand, about Mercedes-Benz and all its elements, but also about G Brothers and you know, beautiful story about your forebears and how they came to this place. And, you know, exciting to see the journey, but more excited to see the journey forward, yeah, guys? So thank you for having me.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Always great to see you, James.
Yeah.
Thanks very much for the
Cheers,
opportunity.
James.
Thanks, James.
Yeah. I'll give you a cuddle later. Gentlemen, we're done. Well, that was episode 24. G Brothers, Mercedes-Benz, Mona Vale, Sydney. And really, it's when the worlds collide with a major global luxury brand, car brand, and some business owners and people in their team that are deeply connected to their role in supporting and being custodian of that brand, but also to the community they serve, to their customers and to the people that they work with. And as many of you will know, from JPA Business, we're involved in advisory work, in valuations and transactions. And one of the key aspects of valuing a business is sustainability. And I think we've heard today how one can build sustainability in a business so that it's not just dependent on any one particular thing. Really recommend this episode to you. Thanks for listening.